I would like to do a little exercise, but it's an exercise where you're divided into groups, and I think if we divide into groups of 4 people each, and to try to sit in a way where you're facing each other, to make it into a square where you're facing each other. And what I would like for you to do is to go in your memory, in your history, in your stories, and to begin to think of stories or examples that you are ready and willing to share with the group that you're sitting with, that in a sense are stories that if you had an ability to distinguish how the past was affecting you, you would have probably been open to different options, other decisions to make. That a story where I felt I did not have a choice, therefore I did what I did. And to share that story, and then to ask yourself, if you had the distinction of saying, I'm allowing the past to affect, or I allowed the past to affect me in that decision, and I was able to distinguish it, what is another option I would have been able to make? It could be a personal story in a relationship, it could be a story in the organization or whatever workplace you had, in the community, at the national level, in peace work, and anything that comes to your mind and saying, now that I kind of began to understand this, in that experience, I simply allowed a linear process to happen. And it could be good. I mean, it's not to say, again, no judgment in this, but just to share it as a story or as an experience. I'll actually share a story that recently happened to me. I have an employee that works at the organization who has a way to always push my buttons. He just has, he doesn't do it on purpose, but he has a way of just creating a situation where he just triggers anger in me. And it's reached the point where as soon as he walks in my office, without him saying anything, I'm triggered. And the reason I'm triggered, why?
Because of the past?
Because of the past. Because every time he almost opens his mouth, and this is my interpretation, every time he opens his mouth, he says something that upsets me or triggers me. And so now, and this is something I'm experiencing. This was just last week. Last week he came into my office, he actually said 2 sentences, and I erupted. I blew up in rage for what he said. And what he said was provoking, but not at the level of anger that I expressed. And the reason I was so angry was because I was carrying all of this memory, all of this connection to him in his past, and how like it was just compiling, and because I did not deal with it differently, it erupted. And so now, being in the space where I say, okay, if I was able to distinguish the fact that I was being triggered by what he was saying, and to ask what are different options to deal with it? How could I have dealt with it differently? Differently, I could have said, we need to talk about this. Let's sit, talk, I'm very triggered by 1, 2, 3. Or I could say, Mr. X, I need a day off from you, please don't show to my office. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm not in a place where I can have a good, healthy conversation with you. So that's kind of an example. I mean, it's already passed, it already happened, and I apologize to what I did. But just, things like this where I just allowed my past to take over. And if now I look back at it, I may have had different options if I was able to distinguish that. Okay? So, no questions, please form your groups of 4 people each. A couple of instructions before you start. If I ask you the question, what would allow for the person to speak to be able to share the most intimate story or experience they have with a group that could be a group of strangers. What would allow for that person to be able to speak her heart to you?
Listening without comments. Listening without comments.
The space of listening that you create. Okay? So what's very, very important, and this is part of what, learning and becoming a peacemaker. I think the greatest tool a leader has is the tool of listening. Many people think that leaders are just about how well they speak and how well they articulate words and how confident they are and charismatic they are. But I actually believe that great leaders are the ones that listen. And so I encourage you, as you're listening, to really be mindful of your own internal conversations as they're happening. How much attention are you truly giving that person to be able to share their story without you going through your own internal conversations, whatever that conversation is? Judgment, assessment, giving opinion, questioning the authenticity of their story. Also notice your physical language. How are you sitting as you're listening? Are you taking notes? Are you looking at your mobile phone? Are you looking up in the air? All of these really, really affect the person who is speaking. And so try to give as much attention to the listening. Really give your body into the listening, into the space of sharing. No interruptions, no discussions. It's not about us trying to give answers to that person, or if I was in your place, I would have done that. We'll keep our opinions to ourselves now, but just to listen with an open heart so that a space can be created for the speaker to speak. And try not to be thinking of your story as you're listening. That always happens. Okay, what am I going to talk about? Oh man, that was a good story. I need to come up with a better story than that story. Just take your time. You have 3 minutes each. If you want to be in silence for 30 seconds to really take in a story, to really think of what is something that I can share that can really be helpful in this process, take your time. If you finish before the 3 minutes are over, create a space of silence, just so that the rest of the team can take it in. And then at 3 minutes, we'll move to the next speaker. So I want each group to choose the first speaker, and may he or she nominate themselves, not others nominate them. Who will be the first speaker in each group? I want to see hands. 1, 2, 3. You have a first speaker? You have a first speaker? First speaker? Somebody nominate themselves. So we all begin on time. Okay, so for the group that came, the exercise, again, to remind you, is we are going to share personal stories from our history. You could share one story or more than one story that deal with an awakening to this distinction between the past and the present. That now you can remember a story where you allowed the past, and mainly your interpretation of the past, to affect a decision that you made for the future. And now you can look at it through a different lens and say, maybe I had different options, or maybe this was the right decision. Even if I had different options, this is the right decision. But to understand, and I shared the story of a person who was frustrating me for a long time, and I allowed that past experience to determine my action towards him. And now I say, if I was able to distinguish that I'm allowing the past to decide my action in the present, maybe I would have had a different option towards him.
So the instructions are clear, but I don't know, I think amongst us, maybe I'm wrong, but it's hard to find one. Can you guide us into...
I think if you look not even too deep into yourself, you'll find many, many stories. And it could be just maybe your opinion on another group.
Okay.
You know, If we took into the Palestinian-Israeli context, you know, you could come up with many stories, and you know, every time I see a woman who is wearing a headscarf, I kind of walk the other side of the road, and because I allow.
Okay, so opinions also.
Yeah, so opinions that you've had in the past that you could bring out and share about them. Okay, so 3 minutes. When I stop at the 3 minutes, please just complete whatever sentence you're in, and then move on to the next person. You don't have to finish the story. So the first person begins. So what we learned from this, just to remind us of the previous session, one of the key learnings from this methodology, or this approach of looking, is that, in a sense, who we are up until this moment is a conversation. Every single one of us is a story. He or she is a conversation. If you take 2 men or 2 women and put them next to each other, and even cut them down straight in the middle and open them to each other, you might not find many things that are different, right? I mean, some things are bigger, some things are smaller, but overall it's the same.
It's all red.
You cannot tell anything about a human being just by looking at them. I mean, you can have a story about them if they're a certain ethnic group or a color group, but who that person is their story. As I said yesterday, if I was walking down any street and you saw me, you might not even recognize me or ignore me or move away from me. But the moment I began to share my story, I showed up. I showed up in your mind, I showed up in your memory, created links with different other stories that you know. You know, I get this all the time. You know, I wish there were other Palestinians like you. Because, again, we have a certain understanding of our interpretation of the Palestinian, and therefore, when we see stories that contradict each other, we try to make it fit. Like, I wish more people were like you, or the other way around. So, in a sense, who we are in the present is a conversation of our past. And we show up in the present as a conversation. The conversation in our memory, through thinking or somebody telling us, helps us make our decisions. If I ask the question, how does the future show up to us in the present? How would that be? So if we said the past appears as a conversation in the present, how does the future show up to us in the present?
In fears.
Fears.
Responsibility.
Responsibility. Vision. Okay.
Magic opportunity to create something.
Making opportunity to create.
Assuming.
Motivation.
Assumptions. Motivations.
Dreams.
Dreams. Okay. So, all these words are right. And again, the question is, what is the one word that puts all of these
Conversation.
Past.
together? Who said that? What?
Conversation.
Conversation. Yeah? Somebody's getting it now. Conversation. What do we do in the present? We talk about the future. We dream about the future. We strategize about the future. We create assumptions about the future by having conversations. And this was maybe one of the points when I was taking the training in England, that just one of those, light flicks over your head. I don't know if you've had them in other experiences, where I began to see that really our life is a dance, just like what you did with Ben earlier, like this movement between two conversations, the conversation of the past and the conversation of the future. And in the present is where the action happens. Most of the time, what we do Because in the present, we're still making our decisions based on the past. And if I ask, why is that? Why do we allow that to happen? We all have dreams. We all have visions. Politically, we all want peace. What makes many of us say it's impossible? It's difficult. It's challenging. Even though it's just a conversation that we're having.
We take the past as a proof.
No, there's proof, there's evidence. In the past, there's evidence. And as we said, facts. Right? I have proof to show you that we cannot make peace with them. Here it is.
Subjective.
Or selective.
Subjective.
Subjective.
Yeah.
Okay. What proof do I have for the future? Do I have any proof that peace is possible? And this is one of the transformation points of nonlinear thinking. And we actually say in it, it's how can we stand, and we call it a groundless ground of nothingness, and still stand for something. A groundless ground of nothingness, and still stand for something. And this is the type of leadership that I'm interested in working with. A leadership that is ready to create a vision from the future that, as I said before, not about deleting or negating the past, actually deeply looking into the past, honoring it, respecting it, learning from it, healing any of the wounds that we have from the past, and to begin to ask, what is a future that we can create that is still also independent from the past, that actually, as peace activists, we have no proof. We have absolutely no proof of it being there because there's nothing in it that is there, but still stand for that position. And that is the conversation for the possibility. Now, before we go into that, I want to bring two other modules that will help us even create a deeper distinction of how we understand the past. Okay. That was my art.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. Do we know what this is at least? If we can.
Yes. Basketball.
Okay. Basketball or soccer.
Field.
Football, field, and stands. Wow. Better than what I thought.
There's the amphitheater.
The amphitheater, right?
One ball.
There's only one ball. Now, here's a very beautiful distinction for you to also look into and to use if it fits into your work. In a football game, how many of you have been to football games or are fans of football? Okay, quite a few. Okay. So you have the stadium, you have the stand around it, and you have the field in the middle. And what is something that you would have? A lot of fans sitting, players, the judge, the coaches, the judges. Okay, you have a lot of excitement, right? Like emotionally, people are fully invested in the game. They're paid tickets to go to the game. They paint their bodies, even in cold weather. They go to these games full of excitement, full of energy, right?
Yes.
They do that. You've been to the game, right? Mm-hmm. You don't go to the game just sit around. You're like part of the game. You actually feel you are making a difference for your team by being there, right? Okay. If I ask the question, what are the type of conversations the people on the stand have?
What type?
What are the conversations? What are they saying? The people that are sitting on the stand.
Winning.
No, the other team losing.
They talk about what's happening on the field, right? They're giving their
Advice.
great.
Why you didn't give him the ball? Why you didn't
Commentary.
Passing the ball.
Okay. A lot of times we're opinions. You said it. Yeah, we're sharing our opinions as to what's happening. Oh, look at that! What he did. Look at this team. That player. He should have passed it. He missed it. And of course, when somebody scores from their team, they celebrate.
They cheer.
When somebody scores from the other team, they boo. When somebody from their team doesn't score,
They boo.
as well.
No, they clap and say, well done.
Yeah, sure. That's why they prevent you from going to games anymore. Okay?
Far too nice.
So the people on the stand are sharing their opinion as to what's happening on the pitch, as you say. Right?
The pitch, yes.
On the pitch. And here there is a lot of judgment,
English.
No, but where are you from?
assessment,
England.
Instructions.
right? Giving instructions even though the players are not listening. They're still giving instructions.
I shout at the television. Be there.
Yes, by the way, when I was a child, everybody was sitting watching a game on television and giving instructions.
But let me tell you a secret in Palestinian society. This is something you don't know. You want to know about Palestinian society? The Palestinian security forces are on full attention at night during Real Madrid and Barcelona games. The Palestinian police. It's far away. People are sitting in coffee shops watching it, and usually what happens? Fights
Oh, really?
happen between Palestinians and Palestinians over Real Madrid and Barcelona. Depends on who wins and who loses. So the police are actually on alert. And you're thinking these people are thousands of miles away from the game. They're shouting at the TV screens. Nobody in Barcelona or Madrid knows about them. And it becomes so emotional, there is so much investment that they actually feel they're making a difference.
Really, man, that's the same.
But they might make a difference.
No, there are fights.
If we are all connected in some
יושבים
way.
בבתי קפה וצורכים על הזה, והם לא הולכים מכות.
זה משטרה יכולה לשבת בשקט.
I agree.
Oh, the guy is totally right.
מחוזתיים.
That's why I
There was
shout
no
at the
audience,
television.
there is no
לא יודעת.
So, let me ask, what are some of the conversations that are happening in the field by
Strategy.
the players?
Give me the ball. Give me the ball.
Is that a strategy?
Give me the ball.
Okay, what are the words they're using?
Tactic.
Pass? Okay.
ראיתי שם.
What else?
מה המילים שלך?
Defense.
Defend? Kick?
Throw the ball.
איזה אידיוט.
Move?
I'm alone. I'm alone.
Open? I'm alone? I'm opened? Okay. So just look into the difference between the words that are used on the field and the words that are used on the stand. And they're in the same place. They're in the same location. If I ask the question, where do results happen?
Where are the results?
Where do the results happen?
On the field.
On the field. That little ball
All actions.
is here. Okay, on the field. If somebody from my team doesn't score, what is my response? We said, for the people on the stand, if somebody doesn't score, they boo him. Okay? Like Messi, he could score 10 times in a game, he misses one, woo, his team. How does his team react to him?
He needs to cheer him up, anyway.
Keep going.
Keep going, they cheer him up, don't look back.
It's okay.
Okay. What happens actually the next time they are attacking, going down to the other goal? If you notice.
He joins them.
he doesn't just join them, they actually give him the ball. The person who doesn't score or misses usually, to keep motivated and in the game, to achieve results, they would actually pass him the ball again.
Smart.
To motivate him, to tell him, we're not judging you. So there is no judgment, there is no assessment. They're not even sitting and strategizing because the movement is happening. They're strategizing in terms of tactics, passing, using these words. So, let's put this into our context.
But that strategy in and of itself, passing the ball to somebody who just missed, is also strategy.
Yep.
It's to raise their
Yeah.
morale.
No, you're right. But
they're
for
not
me, when I
talking
look,
about strategy.
exactly, they're not discussing strategies.
Right.
Here, they're discussing it.
Right.
Peace activists. How many of you call yourself a peace activist? Okay, or interested in becoming a peace activist? I guess this is why you're here.
How many of us?
Peacemaking.
Peacemakers. One of my biggest challenges for me, and I say this really as a person, is to always ask myself, when it comes to action, where am I?
On the bench or in the field.
Am I in the field? Or am I on the stands,
Right.
watching? Because when I look into leadership today, I see a lot of leadership that are
Understand.
on the stands, sitting, sharing their opinion, their judgment, their assessment, their blaming, their complaining. This is where there's a lot of this: blame, complain, accuse. Okay. We said judgment. It's pretty much, in a sense, a conversation that happens here. Generally speaking, it's about the past. Okay, we talk about what happened. Politicians are talking about where the failures of the others are. This is a conversation for action. And so we ask, what does it take to be a peacemaker in action? What are the conversations that we need to have? How do we develop these skills to be able to have these conversations? How do we engage in action talk? And it's not to say there isn't room for opinion, because I'm sure after the game is finished, when the team is sitting together, they're discussing their different opinions as to what happened, what should happen the next time. They're assessing, the coach is helping them. They're probably looking at the press a little bit to see what the press says, a little bit, not all the time like what we do here. But then they're always asking the question, how can we improve our game to win the next one? Always about the future conversation. So I just wanted to throw this module in, just carry it to see, like, next time when you are engaging in something, are you just to distinguish, am I sitting on the stand and sharing my opinion? And just to acknowledge this. I want to share my opinion on something. But to actually assume that my opinion actually achieves results, I don't know.
Well, how do we measure that?
You measure it, I think, by making a decision to be on the pitch.
But how do you get there?
How do you get there? What is a dream that you have to achieve? If I have a dream to achieve peace in this land, if I have a dream to achieve an eco-center, if I have a dream to achieve economic equality, if I have a dream to achieve animal rights, gender equality, any of these issues, I can easily sit and give all of this on it. But at the end of the day, I would say what would achieve results are the people that are engaging in action. Action to achieve results. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, a new conversation. Any questions?
Something that I love that Osho said in one of his satsang, he talked about the differences between a game, playing in a game, between game and play. And he said that games is something that we in the Western world, we created. Games, they have rules, you need to achieve the aim, a result, and all this strategy, this field that you described is about gaming, yeah? The Western people like a lot to play games. And he said that games is something for adults. He said children, they play, in play, and he connected it to the Buddhism, frequency about play. Play is just joy, pure joy, happening now, here, without. And I just wanted to put it because I really believe that also peace is something to enjoy it here and now, and not something that we need to work out and to it's not an aim. It's not for me anyway. It's not something that I want to achieve. For me here, the fact that you are here, this is peace for me. It's amazing that what is happening here and now. And we can look at it also as a play, and enjoy it, and instead of working hard to get it, all the time.
Thank you. Yes.